Mm-mm. Are we live? We are live. Okay, let me get situated. 1 second. 1 second. Let me click out of here. And I am. What's up? What's up? Instagram and Facebook. Give me a second. I'm just getting everything situated. I literally just went live like 5 seconds ago. So you are hopping in real quick. Today, I do have a guest, a licensed therapist, my friend, my bison sister, C. Anderson. And so I'll be pulling her up real quick. So, as always, if you're watching on Instagram and you want to see both of us, you're going to have to go to my Facebook page, which the link is in the bio. And while I'm speaking of Instagram, I am going to write the title right here on the Instagram. So you'll know. What's up, Facebook? Can you hear me? Just type I can hear you in the chat and give me about 30 more seconds. Um, oh, and look at my little Instagram alarm is going off. There we go. Okay. So, what's up, Instagram? All right. So today's topic is dun, dun, dun. Okay. Are there really? No. Every time I'm typing something, I have to like read it to myself to make sure I'm spelling it right. Or is it us? Okay. All right. Okay. So again, on Instagram, if you want to see my guest today, licensed therapist C. Anderson, you will have to go to my Facebook page. This is the behind the scenes of recording of the podcast. So if you want to see her, you have to go to the link in my bio here on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm about to pull her up right now. Okay. So welcome to today's recording of Single You, the podcast. This is the live version. And today I'm welcoming back Miss C. Anderson. She is a licensed therapist down there in Alabama. But you know what? You can actually practice in a few other states as well, can't you?
Yeah, DC,
Yeah.
Ohio, and Georgia. So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can do that.
yes,
Um,
ma'am.
yep. And I will, of course, put her website all in the show notes, all in the chat. As you're watching today, if you have any questions, you can holler at your girl, put it in the comments or what have you, and we will try to get to them. So again, see on this Monday, woo, we got this.
Right,
Like
right.
we got you and I both just worked a full-time job and now we're here. Um,
Oof.
but I had you on, was that now 4 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, a month and a half ago?
About, yeah, about.
Yeah, yeah,
Was it? Okay.
yeah. And we had such a good conversation that I was like, I'm gonna have to bring you back. Just because I really enjoy the way that you think, the way that you run your practice as a licensed therapy, the way that you talk to women. I really, really love that. And it's aligned with the way I think as well. So I brought up this topic because I asked you in your practice, as you're seeing clients, what is the number one thing that comes up when it comes to these dating streets for women? And you said that women say a lot, there
Mhm.
are no good men out here. There are no good men. So I want to hear
None.
you. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, I can't find him. And I just feel like, you know what? No, I don't even want to get to my what I think yet. First, I want to hear from you. Again, thank you for being on the show. What do
You're
you think about
welcome.
that statement? Do you think that it is true? There's no more. They're all gone.
I mean, personally, no, and clinically, no. Right? That's just kind of, it's a very negative and diminishing blanket statement for a whole group of people, right? So that's never true. Um, so no, no, I don't think it's true.
Yeah. Why do you think your clients, women on the internet, that there is this trend of like they're all trash, it's them dudes, I can't find a good man? Why do you think that we
Woo.
say that then? Because do you feel like that's the theme of the internet, right? Like it's men against women.
Yeah,
Why do you think that's
very
happening?
much, very much so.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's a historical conflict, right? That's why we have
Mhm.
like the whole men are from Mars and women are from Venus, right? It's
Right.
always war of the sexes. It's always been this gender war
Yeah.
traditionally. Men against women, all men are dogs, women are this, men are that, right? It's just this dichotomy almost. But I think it's when we talk about social media, I think it has a lot to do with where are we looking and what are we looking for?
Mhm.
But also, are we looking at the person that we need to look at first, which is self?
Mhm.
It's always
Yeah.
always self, right? So if I'm in the dating pool and I'm seeing these men, like this theme of men that I'm attracting, and I say, oh my God, there's no good men, I probably should be looking at myself
Mm.
because there's something happening that I'm either selecting, attracting, or both the same type of person. And also thinking about, well, who am I attracting and how are they different from what I say I want?
I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you said that because that's what I see. I feel like there is no accountability. Like there's no I just feel like a lot of women don't want to say, you know what? I did pass up a lot of red flags. I did quote unquote
Yeah.
pick wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew he wasn't for me and I pushed past that red flag anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's
And I
yeah,
think,
go ahead. Mhm.
yeah, right. Because you can want something all day, but if you don't believe that you deserve it, it's never going to stay. You're certainly not going to attract it. Like you can think that you deserve $1 million or you want $1 million, but if you don't see it happening, you don't think that you deserve it, you're not going to attract it. The other part of that is accountability on two fronts, right? So seeing what you believe, right? The red flags and not allowing the desires and the fantasy to minimize I mean to diminish or minimize what you're seeing.
We got a new word, y'all.
We
Mhm. Go
got
ahead.
some new words, right?
Yes, yes.
um, but also taking accountability for your own stuff.
Mhm.
You can only attract the mirror of who you are, right?
Mm,
Because certain things aren't going to be attractive to you unless there are things going on inside of you. So a lot of times I see women putting out these windows, right, and looking and criticizing when really there should be a mirror to say, am I healthy enough to date? Right?
mm, yeah.
If you have the mindset or the belief, if you're operating on this core belief that says all men are anything, right? Whether all men are amazing, all men are,
Yeah.
crap, there's something wrong with that. Okay. So that's the first thing. So if you have these
Mhm, mhm.
very specific, general, specific blanket statements about men, something needs to be explored.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also glad that you said we need to be asking ourselves, like, are we even ready to date? I just feel like a lot of us are
Mm-hmm.
dating because we think that's the next step. Well, I'm
Mm-hmm. Right.
18, so I
Yeah.
guess I better. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So I always like to kind of joke around with the mantra that the way you know when you're ready to date is when you're not even like tripping off of it. Right.
Yeah.
So if you are angry about dating all the time, or you always have something negative to say about, you see a girl with her man and you over there side
Mhm,
eyeing, or if you are serial dating, if you jump from one relationship to the next, to the
mhm.
next, to the next, expecting something different but getting the same thing, we got to back it up. We got to
Yeah,
figure out what's going on with you. So either of those two extremes can
yeah.
say a lot about why are you dating? Are you dating because you have the degree, you have the this, and you have the that, and now
Mhm.
this fits into your perfect life, right? Your image of what a complete life is? Or
Yeah.
are you dating because you feel drawn to partner yourself and couple yourself with another person,
Yeah.
right? Are you
Yeah.
dating because you're lonely? Are you dating because you're trying to work out some subconscious issues that maybe you couldn't work out with your mom or your dad? There's a
Yeah.
whole lot goes into it. And when we kind of play around with dating, like, oh, it's fun, right? Like we let kids kind of, you're 16 and you got a girlfriend, and it's a very complicated and layered process that should be taken pretty seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I do want to get into men, because I do know that you have some male clients, and in our pre-discussion before the recording, we talked
Uh-huh.
about what you say to men and how they should be maneuvering dating. Can you let us be a fly on the wall and tell us
So,
the things that you, if we are allowed? But I would love to hear what a conversation, like, with one of your
mhm.
male clients sounds like in this lane of relationships and dating.
So for me, and there's a counterpart to this for women as well. So it's not just for men, but when I talk to men, especially, the thing that I always encourage them to do is be honest. And I'm not talking about spill your guts. I'm talking about being honest in your intentions and honest in your actions, because they need to align. And so by that, I mean, if you are not interested in dating one person at a time, that's perfectly okay. But it's important that you be honest about that and uh, set out your rules of engagement. It's important that you make it clear that you know what, I like you, I'm feeling you, but I also, and I'm talking to somebody else, so that she can know. Because some women, that's a problem for some women, which is, we're going to talk about that too. But for some reason, for some women, it's like, thank you, right? I appreciate you telling me that, because now I get to choose. Okay, so what does that mean for us while we're dating? Okay, so what are the boundaries around this relationship? So for instance, for guys, brother, if you are dating and she is not your main partner, she is not one that you're interested in taking to that next level, you shouldn't have her all up and through your house. You shouldn't have her on speed dial every time you need somebody to support you emotionally, right? You shouldn't be doing things that you would only do with your main partner, because that's going to send mixed signals. So I've talked to men before about, you're dating and you're having this relationship. You're telling her, you're not committed, you're free, whatever, whatever. But you're doing the most when it comes to what you do with her. So if this is just kind of somebody that you're talking to and you're sexually active, you need to be using protection. If this is somebody you're just talking to and you're sexually active, you need to not be doing it at your house, because your house is your sanctuary. Your house, that's where you lay your head. If you have children from a previous relationship, that's where your children come, right? So why would you, with someone that you don't have any intentions with at the moment, why would you bring them to your inner sanctum? Why would you do that, right? So then, if for instance you want to take that to the next level, then you start to add in these other levels of access, right? So levels of access. That's what needs to be clarified, because it'll be, well, we were sleeping together and we was doing this, but you're saying that, you don't want to date me and you don't want to wife me, but we do. That's what you're going to get, because that's how women are oriented. That's how we think. That's how we're wired.
Yeah.
So don't
Yeah.
fly me out somewhere, right? We're not gonna go on a trip somewhere, right? Or you're not gonna take me to meet your mama, but I'm not your, like, there's levels to this.
Right, right. And that's where the accountability on us as women comes in too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
we will say, well, yeah, he said he didn't want a girl, but he treated me as such.
Mm-hmm. And so
But
women have to then say, number one, just because a man is talking to you or you guys are communicating, you're not his woman. He can date whomever he wants and how many people he wants. Okay, because I've seen women go, but I don't want him talking to anybody else. Man, why? That's possessive. He does not belong to you. Okay, that's that
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
thing. The other thing is, if he is telling you that he does not want to make you his main partner, or that he does not want to commit to you, take his word for it. And you have the boundaries where it's like, you know what? These are things that I do for this level of relationship, and these are things that I do for this level of relationship. Have your own boundaries, have your own standards, because what we
Yeah.
do a lot of times as women is we think that, oh, I'm going to make him put me in this position. Or we think
Yeah.
that um, the more time that passes and the more time that I invest in him, it'll change his mind and he'll put me in this position.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Where we're
6 months
getting.
later,
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
6 months
Yep.
later, he still has you relegated to this chick he's talking to, and you're in
Mhm.
your feelings. But he told
Yeah.
you at the beginning that he was not wanting to, he didn't want to commit.
Yeah. I have so many places that I want to take this. So I think the first, because I've written some things down, I really want to get into prime examples because I think there's two things that happen in this dating world.
Okay.
One where yeah, he is saying I don't want a girl, but he's treating you as such. That's one scenario. Then there's another scenario where he is doing both, and then 3 months later, maybe it falls off and he does ghost you.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you're in this, you're hurt, and there's some pain there. So I want to talk through those, both of those, to kind of gauge on how we as women can, because I love that word level of access, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the level of access. So I want to go through those two scenarios, and then I don't want to forget to ask you, do men also say in your therapy sessions, there's no good women out there, right? So I feel like if he's saying it and we're saying it, like how do we find each other? So I want to do those three things. So which one would you like to do first? Go through the scenarios, or what are men saying about us?
So let's go through the scenarios.
Okay, okay.
We'll
So
do that
scenario
first.
one, right? So scenario one, you meet a guy, and in the first month or so, he has told you, look, I'm not looking for anything serious. We can just have some fun, what have you. Although he is kind of treating you like you are his woman because he's calling on you, every day or every other day. And you know how, you know what it feels like to feel like he maybe does want to be your man, even though he's saying these things.
Mm-hmm.
So the level of access,
Mm-hmm.
how would you tell one of your clients to maneuver through that situation?
So the first thing I would, I assume I'm speaking to a female client, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would talk to the woman in the situation and ask her, what is what's incongruent about this for you, right? Because you're saying that he said this, but he's doing that. Okay, yeah, well, he said he didn't want a commitment, but he's treating me in these ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you have a couple of choices. You can be very clear with him about, hey, you were very clear about where you are right now as we're, interacting.
Hmm.
But I notice that you do this, this, and this. For me, that doesn't match, right? Or for me, that speaks to a very different type or level of interest,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because you're giving him the opportunity to one, self correct and say, oh, right. Or saying, well, maybe I do want to take it to the next, or whatever it is that he might be thinking. But don't assume that he's thinking one thing, because he could just be doing what he's feeling. But it's okay for you to say, you know what, I want to bring something up to you. I remember you saying this and I was very clear on that, but when you asked me to do these kinds of things, for me that says something very different. And for you to have that kind of access to me, it requires this for me.
But see, let me tell you, I feel like that is so hard for women because what you just explained is a
Mm-hmm.
boundary.
Mm-hmm.
but it's so hard for us to have confrontation. We could view that as confrontation if we're like, okay, well, you can't call
Look,
me because I feel like,
I
us
ain't say, look, I
basically,
ain't say all that. It's just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
here's
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing, right? Because it's just really, it's really conversation, and it's adult and mature and clear conversation. Because confrontation doesn't isn't a fight. Confrontation means that we're looking at what's happening, right? We're confronting. We're not ignoring or hoping it gets better or hope you read my mind. It means that we're looking at what's happening here, right? So it's okay to sit down with another adult who you're sharing some sort of something with at this point, to have a very open conversation about what you're seeing develop, because that's what dating is. It's a development. It's an evolution, right? It's the evolving of two people connecting, and there are going to be times where you have to have those conversations, because that lack of communication that's clear and honest is what leads us in situations that we go, well, damn, how did I get here?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that because, and I'm glad you went there. It's kind of where I wanted you to go about the being an adult and being a communicator because we're women, right?
Right.
Especially my clients, we over 30. So if you want to date, be a woman about it. Be a woman about your stuff. And if you feel like he's doing something that isn't matching, then you are allowed to say, hey, excuse me. Okay. So, and I love how you put it there. That's a script for you listening. Like if it
Mm-hmm.
is happening, you can
And
say,
so, and I'll
okay.
yeah, and I'll
Mhm.
say that again because you can use this in any interaction,
Yeah.
supervisors, family members, etc. Right? You say, hey, I'm noticing this, right? Or you said this. Now I'm seeing this. Help me understand why these two things they seem not to match, or in some way. And then he can bring clarity to it. But don't go, well, you said I was you ain't want no relationship, but then you all over me and you be want me to bring you lunch at work. Like, chill. It's all good.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about this.
Yeah,
Right?
let's have an adult
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah, yeah. And if he flees from that situation, then you know he wasn't suitable for you. But that's we fear that, like, oh, if I speak up for myself, he's going to leave.
Right. Hold on for
But
me
then we
one
don't.
second. I need to charge my tablet. I'm sorry.
Yep, no worries, no worries. I don't want it to die, and
I'm
then
sorry. Yeah, I don't
be
want it
like,
to
where'd
die
she
either.
go?
Give me 1 second.
No worries, no worries. And then if you're watching, we'll go into the next scenario when C comes back from that. And we're going to talk about what are the men saying in her therapy sessions with them. Are they also saying, are there no good women out there? Because I'm like, if we're saying it and they're saying it, like, where is the disconnect? How can we both get to a place where, for those who want to date, right? And obviously, my clients are those who want to date. They do desire a husband,
Okay.
and they
There we
want to
go.
date. Yay! She's
I'm
back.
back. I'm back. I'm back.
If you're
Yeah, I'm
watching on
sorry about that.
Instagram and you want to see, if you want to see, all you have to do is go to my link in my bio and you'll go to my Facebook page. But here on Instagram, just the behind the scenes, so you can hear C, but you only get to see me. Okay. Until they develop that app where I can have two people, you know, the way that Facebook does it. I hate the Instagram when you have somebody on your Instagram live. But anyway, okay. So, yes. So thank you for that. And having that script, because again, I think we definitely fear quote unquote what we deem confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
So when we want to speak up for ourselves, we don't. Because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we feel that we
Mm-hmm.
know there's some inconsistencies, but
Yes,
again,
I'm glad you
I'm not-
said that, right? Because this is the other part. One of the things that I teach women to do, which is actually what we're taught the exact opposite of, is to trust your intuition, trust your gut, trust the things that you may not have physical evidence of, but that you feel, whether it's in your heart, your head, whatever, you can feel it, right? When usually if there's some sort of something that's wrong, the first thing we do is say, well, I don't have, we go looking for proof, right? Because we can feel it, but we might not have the physical proof. So if that thing in you is unsettled, it's okay for you to explore what the unsettledness is, because that may be there to protect you. That may be there to say, guess what? You've learned all you can learn, or you've gotten all that you can get in this situation, and it's time for this season to end. And the other thing is you don't have to wait until a relationship is bitter or spoiled to end it. it's okay to walk away on good terms. Uh-oh. You're muted.
Oh, yep,
Reconvene.
I was muted. Sorry. Sometimes I do that just because sometimes there's feedback when I'm editing it, so I turn
Okay.
my mic off. So, um, I feel like there's probably more than one reason, but I do want to ask just to hear your thoughts on why do you think we ignore that gut feeling? Why do we ignore that as women?
I think that we've been socialized to believe that we are overly sensitive, overly emotional, that we aren't logical, right? We're actually socialized, particularly Black women, to be everything but feminine. And when I speak of femininity, I'm not talking about hair, makeup, and heels. I'm talking about the energetic gifting that is built into us, the nurturing, the yielding, the receptivity, the being open, the softness of us, and our intuition. We're taught to be everything except but those things. And when you are taught to be things other than your authentic self, you have to almost go back and get it. Like you have to go deeper to find those things that were taught out of you or raised out of you, kind of as we developed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you listening, that is a question you can ask yourself because I know you and I know that it is hard for you to lean into that gut feeling. I call it our God voice. You
Mm-hmm.
need to ask yourself why. Where does that come from? And that's part of the work. That isn't pretty, but you got to do the
Mm-hmm.
work. Okay, so let's get into the second scenario, which is you were talking to a guy, and it actually has to do with a TikTok that went viral. And I'm not sure if you saw it, but the poor young lady, she's 30, she lives in LA, and she was talking about LA dating, and she was crying, and I felt so bad for her. And another dude that she was in the talking stage talked to him for probably about 3 months, and then he ended up ghosting her, I guess, and it didn't work out. And she was really upset, and obviously that's painful because you're allowed to feel the feelings. But I think that is a lot that, well, in both scenarios, that's where we get the there's no good men and there's no quality men and all men are trash. Speak to that woman and speak to that scenario. What would you tell her?
It's for someone that has ghosted her.
Yeah, yeah.
So something else you said hit when you said that's the reason that we think that there are no good men and no good men are,
Mhm.
there's no good men, but also that men are trash.
Yeah.
There's another part of that. Another part of that is sometimes we measure men up to our fathers or our father figures. And I always caution women against that, um, because you knew your father as a father, not as a partner. Okay. And so you may be trying to find a man like your father, and your father maybe was not a good husband or a good co parent, right? You knew him only in the role of father. But to speak to your question about the ghosting piece, twofold. There's always signs and signals. Sometimes we read them wrong. Okay. If you're dealing with someone who eventually ghosts you, people normally ghost after hints are not taken, right? After the phone calls cease, right? After you start to scramble, and try to figure out how to bring interest back to the dynamic, or people see something that now they can make their decision and they don't know how to communicate that. There's a reason why people don't communicate. And that's not to say it's your fault, but you can also see it as dodging a bullet. Why would you want to create a life or be connected to and tied to someone who can't communicate that, you know what? I'm really not feeling you anymore, and I really would like to end this on a good note. Whatever you're looking for, I hope you find it, but I don't believe that it's us, right? So it's not a loss. It's not a loss.
Yeah. And And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot too, is like we think that if a breakup happens or we're ghosted, we're losing. Like we suck at this relationship game
Mhm.
and quote unquote game. And I love one of the things that you said about Megan Good and Devon Franklin.
I was
Uh,
just thinking
uh,
about that.
right, right. So speak on your thoughts around that. And even before you do, is because I want us all to understand, men, women, whatever you identify as, just because like what am I trying to say here? I just have so many thoughts. Okay, you speak
You
first and then I'll
okay?
say. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I
Go ahead.
think what
Go ahead.
you're referring to, and actually, it speaks to your the comment that you just
Yeah.
made. Uh, Thinking that a breakup is a loss.
Yeah.
Again, I can. If you are breaking up and the relationship is bitter and you're fighting and you decide to break up, you have stayed beyond the date of expiration and the relationship is now spoiled, right? Like there are times when you are on good terms and you know that something isn't right. That's a prime opportunity for you to have a conversation that says, you know what, I don't like, where are we? I don't know if we're on the same page. I'm not willing to wait. I'm not willing to put this energy in. I'm resentful, whatever the thing may be. That's an opportunity for you to uncouple consciously, uncoupling, right?
Thanks to
One of the
Gwyneth Paltrow for that word. Yes.
one of the things that I was so pleased to see, in my opinion, is only based upon what was reported. So I'm going to say that because I don't know the inner workings. But when it was reported that Megan Good and her husband were splitting, their statement was so healthy. They came to a place where they realized that they wanted different things and they had enjoyed the journey together. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is so sad. I'm like, what's sad about that? What is sad about throwing the milk away or disposing of the milk before you taste it and it's rancid to see that it's sour, right? Like, what is sad about that? We are,
Right,
again,
right,
conditioned to think that breaking up or divorce or a separation is a negative thing. It's probably the most healthy thing that people can do because it says we are now working. And so let's see if we can work by ourselves or maybe with somebody else, hopefully before you start dating somebody else. But
right, right, right.
yeah, but it can be healthy. It
Yeah.
can be healthy.
Ooh, let's sit there real quick. So there was a tweet that I saw, or maybe it was a TikTok, or social media just blending in for me. I'm just like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't be knowing where I find stuff anymore. But it's something that's now tattooed on my heart. And she said that it is okay to be sad, even about the right choices you made.
Yeah.
So I don't think that
Yeah.
we're definitely not saying that Megan Good and Devon Franklin shouldn't be sad, right? Like, oh, okay, that sucked. Because it is sad because we were together for 9, 10 years or what have you. But to literally think of yourself as a failure because the relationship ended, I want us to unlearn that. I want
Yes.
us I want us to
Yes.
get to a point where we understand that it is okay to walk away from something that no longer is suitable for you.
Yeah, and no longer healthy in a lot of cases. If you have to
Yeah.
go through your mate's phone and you have to watch them and you have to try to figure out what they're doing, that's not healthy. That's not
Yeah.
healthy.
At all.
So,
Yeah.
if your partner has some sort of addiction issue and it is causing the home to be unsafe or it's causing the finances to be problematic, that's not healthy, right? And it's
Right.
interesting because Megan's marriage or relationship, I'm not sure if it was the totality of the relationship or just the married part, but 10 years is a generation, right? 10 years is like a cycle of newness to reevaluate and to say, okay, well, what are the goals for this next part of our life together? And if you come to a place where you're different in who you've grown to be from the time that you met, and you say, you know what, this isn't what we need. Yeah, like you can certainly
Yeah.
grieve the relationship because loss is loss, but to say that a breakup is the end of you, no,
Yeah. Or you're
no,
a failure because you
no, no.
didn't get it right.
Yes.
And that's what I was
Ah,
trying to say earlier. It's like I want us again to unlearn that the goal is like to get into this relationship and keep it till death do us part or what have you, right? Like I I just it's not a guarantee. Like being in a relationship forever, getting married, even having kids, it's not a guarantee. And I just feel like, especially with that TikTok I saw with the girl crying, it's like
Mm,
you can tell like dating and getting married weighs heavy on her heart. And not to say that, of course, we're gonna have that desire, that sexual desire, that partner desire, and that desire is
right.
there. I get it,
Right.
but it's not like food where we need food to survive, right? Like I do think that we need relationships and we need
Yeah.
to be in communion with humans. We
Yes.
need
Yes. Connection.
human touch,
Yeah.
connection, but a relationship to me is just not a guarantee. It's not a promise.
But Rika, it's the same thing that we do to women about having children. When you
Hmm.
gonna have a baby? What's taking so long? When are you gonna have a baby so I can have a grandchild? Just these pressures that we associate with wholeness. We associate marriage. We associate a good, steady job. We associate having children with wholeness and happiness. And for a lot of people, that is just not that's not the case. There are a lot of people who are married with children and they have $1 million jobs and they hate getting up every day.
I just I just want you to hear what C just said. That is not, it's not, we have to stop thinking, God, what did you just say? Something about wholeness.
I said that we associate.
There we go. Associate. That's the word. We have to stop associating being in a relationship with wholeness. We have to stop associating getting married with wholeness. We have to stop associating having a baby with wholeness. That is not the thing that makes you whole. And for my faith and the clients that I have, y'all know I'm a woman of faith and I love Jesus. Jesus makes me whole. Having that relationship and being in that communion and communion with myself, I'm
Mhm.
telling you, the shift that I have had in my inner peace since 2017, since I started the work, like I don't even
Mhm.
really, I don't have that hole in me anymore of like, well, if I don't get married, then what did I do with my life?
And the opposite of that is that same statement that you just made is when I do this, I will be this. It's a bargaining chip that you use with yourself. It's, well, when I get this job, everything will be great. So you work really hard to get that job or that position or whatever. Well, when I get married, everything is going to be wonderful. So you work really hard to get married. But when we have a baby, things will be okay. And you never get to that place of okay or wonderful or amazing because wonderful, okay, and amazing are in you. They've always been inside of you. They are not connected to any external force or any external piece of validation. Because when you connect yourself to any of those external forces, and those are your validating factors, they can always be taken away. So then who do you become without your marriage? Who do you become without
Mm.
being a parent? Who do you
Yeah.
become without your partner or that job? Who is your true and authentic self? This is why people develop resentfulness, right? Resentment is the byproduct of not being heard. It's the byproduct of something being unfair. It is your the voice of your authentic self saying, you are betraying us.
Ooh, ooh. And that betrayal of self is a dangerous thing. And you and what you just said there, like this is unfair, right? Like this is why we say statements like there are no good men out here, there are no quality men, because we feel that it is unfair that I don't have a man. Where is my Barack Obama, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I do want to get to the men and your clients again. Let's be a fly on the wall. Do they say the same thing? Like there are
So
no good women
I'm
out
trying
here.
to
There are...
remember just kind of
Uh-huh.
generally. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
in general, and I've seen both black and white men, married, single, divorced, etc. And the resounding frustration that I hear with them revolves around emasculation.
Mm,
When I said earlier about how the femininity, the feminine energy, the feminine operation characteristics of womanhood are really taught out of us.
mm,
And so when we get
tell
in
me
these
more. Tell me more. Yes,
when
yes,
we
go.
get when we get into these relationships, if you are a heterosexual couple, when we get into these particular dynamics, then we are trying to operate in just as much masculine energy and characteristic as our male counterpart. And we want him to be strong. Well, some people do. Some people want weak men, or I use weak loosely, but I've heard women say, I need a man that I can control, because when I can control, I can be safe. So that's a whole conversation for a whole nother day.
I must say it's a whole different
Yeah,
conversation. Those are not
yeah,
my clients. So yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so coming back to that, I get a lot of men that say, my wife, my fiance, my partner, my woman, my babe, she won't let me be the man. She won't let me protect, provide, and be here for her, because she is so used to seeing either her mother, who did everything,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Um, or she has issues that she's trying to prevent from happening in this situation.
Can you explain, maybe give us some examples of what that looks like when we're, what's the word, demasculate? Is that the word, demasculating? Is that a word?
Emasculate.
Yeah, emasculate. I'm
When
like,
we're
it seems as a emas,
emasculating,
right, right, right. What does that look
it
like when we're
so
doing it,
it
especially as Black women?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it can be very, 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 very subtle, and things that you wouldn't even recognize in day to day, that chip away at a man's ability to stand in a position of leadership and power in the relationship, if that is the type of relationship that you choose to have. Um, so, for instance, if you all are driving and he makes the wrong turn, well, why did you make that turn? Because he made a choice to make that turn, right? If he asks for direction, then I'm sure that he will solicit, your advice. Or you control the money and he spends something. He works too, but you manage the money. And he purchases something that he wants for himself. Well, you didn't ask. Well, he's also an adult who works every day and makes money, right? So it's almost like you become the mother in the marriage, or he is in so many ways, if not blatantly, asking for you to stay home one night with him, not go out with the girls. And it's, well, I'm gonna do what I want to do. You're not considering who he is to you and who he is trying to be to you before making decisions for yourself. And not to say that that is selfish, but it certainly can come up. Oh, wait a minute, you're trying to control me. And it's like, no, I'm trying to connect with you, is what I'm trying to do. I see a lot of situations. For instance, let me tell you about this.
Yes.
So I
Story
went and
time. Yep.
spoke.
And then I have another question. Yep. Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I spoke at a couples brunch, and I did a keynote. It was a great event, and different couples were there speaking, and it was a predominantly Black event, very much based in the church. And as much as is in the church that we try to talk about, I want a man that can lead and a man is a head. Black women, y'all not even letting them be, because you know what I saw when they went around the room and the couples introduced themselves. You know who was the mouthpiece? The woman.
The women. Yep. Yep.
And do you know the look on the men's faces? The men looked terrified, like their voices had been shrunk. Like they did not know what to say. They did not assert themselves. It was me and my husband went with me. And so afterwards I said, I said, did you notice anything interesting about when the couples were speaking? And he was like, yeah. He was like, all the women spoke. I said, it was like they almost like, it was like I'm in control. And the men were very small in the space. They were very small in the space. So I think that this results from grandma, auntie, and mama talking about all men are dogs. Don't let no man do this to you. And a man will run over you if you let him. And it's like we've not been taught the beauty and the softness and the balance that can happen in
Yeah.
a relationship when we
Yeah.
are operating in those two energies
Yeah.
like we could.
So here's where I want to take that, because like you said, it's in the nuances sometimes where we're emasculating him, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then remember, we were just talking about a scenario of being ghosted. That
Mm-hmm.
may be one of the reasons. And I'm not here to say if it's right or wrong,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
have you.
yeah. No
To be
judgment.
honest, right.
Yeah.
To be honest, I have been ghosted. I recently have been ghosted. And to me, I always go, well, at least I didn't have sex with him. You know what I mean? Like, because the level of access you have to me is like, I, if you do ghost me, okay, you weren't suitable for me, because the way that I think about relationships and marriage and stuff is totally different than the woman I was in 2017 and prior. So that's where that may be where some of the ghosting is happening, but regardless, he just wasn't suitable for you. And so we're also not saying that you don't get to speak up. Obviously, Siege literally just gave you a script for you to set a boundary, with grace and just have a conversation. So I just want to make sure they're hearing you right. Like, you are allowed to speak up as a woman, because I just feel like right now I can just see it. I can feel it in the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Women are like rolling their eyes because I think
But you know what? Wait a
yeah.
minute. Hold on,
Hmm.
Rika.
Hmm.
So when I spoke about, I use the words that your presence, right? The words that you speak to your partner are like honey to him. You are sweetness and softness and nurturing and love and comfort and reassurance for him. And do you know the women who have been married for years, as I looked around the room, rolled their eyes? And you know what happened?
I
Do you
knew it.
know
I knew it.
do you know what happened after I spoke? The
No.
men lined up to come and talk to me
Yes.
about what was going on in their marriages.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing, the information that I'm giving and I'm holding is so powerful. You can have any man that you want, but you have to get out of your own way.
Yeah. And I learned, and I think that's a part of doing the work as well. That
Mm-hmm.
what I learned, especially when talking to my cousin DJ, shout out to DJ, he's been on my podcast a couple times. Even Devon Franklin's book, The Truth About Men. Men are very sensitive. And I think that we have this picture in our mind of like, especially us millennials, we grew up in the 90s, so Jody, right? Of baby boy. Like, we think all men are like that and we can just run over him and we can cuss him out and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And that he'll just take it. But I feel like, and you could tell me as a licensed therapist, see, men are sensitive more than they let on.
I won't even say that men are sensitive because
Uh-huh.
that implies that they shouldn't be, that they shouldn't feel. What I will say is that men are human and we are all born
There
with
we go.
full
Better word.
range, that we are all born with full range of emotion. And it is never okay to disrespect your partner. And I see women all the time. I see women do things to men that if they were done to women, we'd be up in arms. And neither are okay. All right. So Yvette and Baby Boy is what I would call a headache. There's no way. Like, and women think, I don't know if women perceive that as being a strong black woman or cute or whatever. Like, that's not cute. It's not attractive. It's not attractive to call a man out of his name. It's not attractive to blast the things that he's confided in you and throw them up in his face when you're angry. It's not, those things are not okay. Those are not healthy things to do. And so why would a man be attracted or wants a wife that I think I would ghost that too,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, and I saw an instance where a woman was talking about this guy asked her out for a date, but it was for coffee, and she was like, "Coffee? Like I need to go to dinner. Do you want to eat? Like, are you getting a free? Like, you trying to get a free meal, or do you want to have conversation and
Mm,
talk to someone who's interested in you? Like, what are your motives?
yeah.
Why do
Yeah.
why do you why do you want to be connected to somebody, to have somebody to control?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
really, really search yourself. Like, is it mommy issues? Meaning, did mom do some things? Like, what did your mother teach you about womanhood? Did she teach you how to cultivate it and for it to be a healing presence for the people that come into contact with you? Or did she teach you how to wield it like a weapon? Did she weaponize womanhood? Did she weaponize sexuality? Right? Like, these are the things that you need to be asking yourself when you're trying to prepare yourself to be somebody's partner. How is a man benefiting, right? Because evidently, we bring everything to the table, so we got it all together. But how is a man benefiting from being with you? What is the benefit?
It's so good. I was gonna say the motive I feel like for a lot of women is because they just want to be married. They don't want to be a partner. It's not. They think
No.
they do because, oh, we're in a relationship, so I'm a partner. But actually, not rolling your eyes when somebody is telling you you're probably emasculating him while doing that.
And the other thing about, because referring to your because it used to be, oh, that's my boyfriend, right? If we're not married, that's
Yeah.
my fiance. But now we're using the word partners, and I get that. But I also want to make this distinction only because you talked about, a lot of your audience there in the church. Husband is not just a title, it's an action. If you go and you look up that word, it's very much a steward. So
Yeah.
do you want a steward over you, right? One that is healthy and appropriate worthy, right? They've done the work for themselves to be that steward for you. Or do you want a partnership? Do you want 50-50? Be very clear. Don't say you want 50-50 when you really want a husband. Don't say you want a partnership, everything equal, because that's what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
I don't want a
Yeah.
partnership. I have a husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that language for me, that doesn't resonate for the kind of relationship the marriage that I am
That you
in.
want. Right. Right. And
Yeah.
that comes with doing the work and knowing who you are, right? And
Yes.
that goes back
Yes.
to knowing the level of access you will allow men to have to you until you know exactly where you're going.
Yes.
And that actually leads right into my last question, because remember I had asked you, because you said something in our pre-conversation and you were like, you don't want women to see to be seeing where it's going, right? And you feel like women know in the first day, second day, whatever, if he is suitable for you or not, if you're doing the work. But my question was, is there a level of seeing where it goes? And I'm going to use that example that you just said about emasculating men.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a scenario, because y'all know I love scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Say I'm in a relationship, or we're talking, right? In a talking phase. And I did say something about, why'd you just take this left? And he does not communicate with me that emasculated him. Is there a level of teaching that I could do? Because, right, so I'm a
So
woman
I
who's
think that
done a lot of work.
there's a
Uh-huh.
level of teaching that the man could do. Because here's the thing, right? He's in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
right? Like, so if he doesn't know where he's going, there's GPS. He can also use his mouth to ask you if he's at the point where he doesn't feel like asking you what would be, whatever that, the man thing is with directions, right? So guess what? If I'm in my feminine energy and we're dating and we're going somewhere and you portray to me that you know where we're going, I'm going to let you drive. Now, if you ask me, right, if you solicit my advice, I'm going to be like, well, no, I would have taken the left back there, right? So there's a level of knowing oneself to be able to communicate one's needs, whether in this scenario or any other scenario. But I think for women, it's like, don't we don't know everything about everything. And we don't always have to control the situation. We don't always have to predict and anticipate what's going to happen. Like, we don't have to be so hyper vigilant in these relationships. Like, that is a sign that you maybe have not healed, that there's maybe some other stuff going on. So, if it takes an extra 30 minutes and you're dating, that may be the funniest 30 minutes, that those may be memories to kind of look back on, where you were able to fall back in that femininity and say, I just let you take the wheel. Like, I trusted you to get us where we were going. Even if it took that extra 20 minutes. Well, we could have been there 20 minutes ago. If you would ask me, like, yo, did the world fall apart?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so
Yeah.
we come back to that needing to be right, or to correct, needing to correct somebody, right? Is it worth it? Like,
Mhm.
chill,
Mhm.
relax. It's
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And so so first of all, what I hear you saying is like, relax. Dating should be fun. I'm reading the book The Power of Now right now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, don't let that be your first book of reading if you're doing the work, because this book is deep. And I feel like you need to know a little bit more of the language of spirituality and healing before you get to that book. But it is about being in the now and not always
Mm-hmm.
like the goal has to be marriage.
Yes.
And is this a red flag or is
Yes.
this not a red flag? If
I'm
he,
glad you brought that up, because a
yeah,
lot of people, that's the number one tool that I teach, is being present, mindfulness. Because a lot of people are either in the past or in the future. They're very rarely are they in the present, right? There's my favorite Erica Badu lyric from Window Seat is when she says, I don't want to time travel anymore. I want to be here. I don't want to be stuck in the past. I don't want to be in the future. I want to be here in these moments. Life is so sweet when you can be present in the now.
that needs to be on a t-shirt. I don't want to time travel anymore. I definitely don't. And that's a continuous work that I am working on. So I just want to go back to that scenario one more time and we'll end this, because I feel like the word narcissism,
Oh,
love bombing, all of these titles get thrown around at men
yes.
a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to hear what you think about this, because I feel like we villainize, is that
Yes.
a word? We villainize
Yes.
men too much.
Yes.
So in that scenario, if we were going on a date and I noticed that he took a wrong turn, yes, I could say, hey, why'd you take a left or whatever, gracefully, not with attitude. What you doing? We about to be late. Woo, woo, woo. And if I see him visibly upset, and that's what I mean by like, is there a level of like teaching? Because then I feel like I can say, listen, if I upset you, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
don't get to walk away from that situation and call him a narcissist
No, because
or
that's
call
not
him,
that's a human emotion, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
narcissism is a pathological disorder that has certain criteria that have to be met in order for that to be in. It is not every dude that you come into contact with, because for real, we could do the same to women, and say that all women have borderline personality disorder. Oh my God, you're so borderline, right? Like, you're acrimony, that movie, right? Um, but we don't do that. But we villainize men, and because that takes the accountability off of our behavior that precipitated whatever happened. And I'm not talking about power and control abusive relationships. That is not what this conversation and these
is
comments
about.
are
No,
are about.
absolutely.
This That's
Right,
totally different.
right.
I'm talking about, he didn't text you good morning beautiful, or you text him, hey, what you doing, and he said, nothing. and now you're calling him a narcissist. That's not narcissism. If you
Yeah.
were with a narcissist, you probably wouldn't even notice it until it was too late. Meaning you were already well into the relationship and connected. So trust me on this. Um, that word is being thrown around and used just like gaslighting. Every time I hear somebody use the word gaslighting, it is not used in the correct and proper way. Okay?
Yeah.
So I agree with your statement about men being villainized, particularly with being called narcissists.
Mhm.
Um, the level of teaching again that comes into how we talked about earlier, being able to communicate, being able to say, "Hey, I noticed when we were driving and I saw you going the wrong way
Yeah.
and I interjected directions. I noticed the response. Can you help me understand what that was?
C is out here giving you scripts. You better write this down in your notebook.
Can
Be-
you
Mhm.
help me understand? I'm not assuming. I'm not labeling you. I'm not calling my girls, talking about, girl, he got mad when I told him to take a left. That nigga a narc. Excuse my language.
Yep,
But that's
that's
what we
okay.
do,
Yep.
right?
100%. Mhm.
Yeah. But a woman who's done the work and who knows herself and who is mature can communicate and say, I noticed, right? This was my observation. I don't want to assume. So, can you shed some light and help me understand what that was, right? Because then he could say, oh, it reminded me of this, or I was frustrated because my GPS wasn't working. It wasn't about you. My apologies. Next time, So, that's how you learn a person. That's how you learn uh, where I can support you on this
Yes.
journey, right? That's
Yes.
how you learn each other's
Yes.
needs. But we don't do that. Our egos won't allow us to be vulnerable or to be wrong enough to ask the questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, and it goes back to what we were saying, like, do you want to be in a relationship or not? Like, it this is a relationship. Like, it's
Relate.
communication. Yes,
Relate.
right? Yes. And it's like, oh my gosh, being back in these dating streets, I am proud of myself because I see the way that I'm maneuvering different, the way that I no longer judge men or his actions. I no longer judge his character, and I no longer judge, oh my gosh, that means there's something wrong with me or I'm too much. It is what it is. And I'm getting in that space more, right? And there is still, I don't want to lie to anybody. There's still fear there. There's
Mm-hmm.
still, am I too much? I talked about this
Mm-hmm.
with Cameo about 2 weeks ago on my
Mm-hmm.
podcast. It's there, but I know how to maneuver it and set it down now for a
Mm-hmm.
second and not operate from that space of ego of like, oh my gosh, you're a narcissist because you didn't text me for 2 days. But I'm also like, we're not together. Why does he
And
need to
people
text
have,
me every
yes,
day?
and people, he's
Yeah,
not obligated to, and people have
no,
lives and things happen.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, that is how I learn the level of access he is allowed to have to me. So if that in that scenario, I asked him, hey, back there, I didn't notice you get upset. Could you please, help me understand why, Um, if he doesn't know how to communicate with me or he gets angry, like angry, then I would probably walk away and I would say, okay, that wasn't suitable for me. But I probably still wouldn't call him a narcissist.
No.
I would just be like, he wasn't suitable for
No.
me. And he doesn't know how to regulate his feelings right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it is what it is. And I walk away.
Yeah.
So,
Or
yeah.
he may explain something that, guess what, you didn't know about him. And now you've
Yeah.
learned something new about this person. And maybe you learn now how to approach the situation. Just like hopefully if something happened with you that seemed out of proportion, he would ask you and not label
Yeah.
you borderline
Yeah. Yeah.
and not label you, whatever, but he would learn something new about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
we
how you
don't do
learn,
that
like you said,
anymore.
relate. We don't do that. We don't
Yeah.
we are so afraid. We let that fear stop us from asking the right questions. And then we also, when we get the answer or we have that gut feeling or whatever, we are also afraid to walk away because we say, oh, okay, well, I can change him. I can make him not get upset. I can, and blah, blah.
Child.
Yeah. Okay,
If
so
we could, if helping somebody, right, or like giving somebody advice would change them, then therapy would not be a thing.
Yeah, you
People
would
people have
need
to
it one
come to
time.
their own awakening, their own realization, their own aha moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I'm
why you
just
have like girlfriends and like, and you talk about the same problem over and over and over. You're giving her
yeah,
advice because she's not come to it on herself,
on her own.
herself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, you
Yeah.
can't change anybody. Can't change
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah. I just every time I have these conversations with you and everybody I have on my podcast, especially for you, the therapist that I have on my podcast, like I'm just so proud of myself in the work that I've done. It makes me so happy to be a woman who can finally say, I give men a lot of grace, but not to my detriment anymore. I have humanized them. I have taken out the villain
Mm-hmm.
and I have set my boundaries and my access level is just it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm so proud. And so for you listening, that is the space that I want you to get in because this space over here feels so peaceful. And I know what it's like to be the woman like the girl on the TikTok that I saw when another relationship doesn't work out and you feel like a failure and you feel like that time is ticking, especially if you want
Mm.
kids. I feel like I'm privileged because I don't really care if I have kids or not. So I'm privileged in that area. I don't have a strong desire for that. So I do understand that level as well. But it's not a guarantee. And it does not associate with your wholeness. So I will end on that unless there is anything else you need to say. See,
I think you covered all the questions
yeah.
wonderfully. So,
Yay. Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Well, again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. Again, I will put licensed therapist C. Anderson. Of course, she went to Howard University. She's a bison. I will put her information
Yes.
in the show notes and I will have her back again. And this is what we'll do. If you have any questions that you want to ask her, go ahead and send me a DM. My DM is always open, girl. So you can slide into my DMs. Okay. So if you have any questions for her, and maybe we'll bring her back as well to answer those questions for you. So hit me up if you need to. And with that, we will end this podcast, which, by the way, one second, which I'll probably cut out at the end of my podcast, but here on live, Joe and I think it's Susie. So odd that both of you asked me, did you quit Power 99.1? It's just fun because I just haven't had that question in a while. Yes, back in June of 2021. So I have not been on Power 99.1 in a while. Still love the city. But now I'm focusing on my own stuff. Okay. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this uh, broadcast.